As long as I am unable to exercise my constitutional right to vote, I do not have command of my own life. I cannot determine my own destiny, for it is determined for me by people who would rather see me suffer than succeed. Those that have gone before us say, no more, no more. That means protest, that means march, that means disturb the peace, that means jail, that means risk, and that is hard.
This is an incredible film and incredibly well executed, and I'm as much fascinated by the story on film as the story behind the film and making of it. I understand that it took a long time to make this film, and you two were on board for a while trying to be a part of this. Why were you so personally invested? Where did you assume the responsibility, and why did you know that you were the right people?
Well, I had first read the script 7 years ago. 2007 I read it, and then I was subsequently, thankfully, cast in 2010. But the film has had a very bumpy journey towards production. You know, directors have come and gone for whatever reason, and the film just wouldn't take. Now, in the midst of all of that, I had done a film with Ava called Middle of Nowhere, and really felt I had found a director not only who somehow, almost in just a chemical way, knew me as a performer and was able to get great things out of me, but also has such a direct inroad to human stories and mining the characters within human stories for humanity. And I always felt that if I was going to have any chance of playing Dr. King well, that's the key. It has to be, we have to see his humanity, not just further accentuate, you know, the political side of him. So, you know, I advocated for her to come on board.
You got me the job.
And she did exactly what I was hoping and more, which is to just, you know, layer this film.
And so what was it like? What's the atmosphere like? And I feel like that's always like a throwaway question, but this is special. You were there at the sites where these things actually happened. You were with people who were there. You're at the bridge. You're at the Capitol. What is it like filming something that is recent and that is still probably hanging around in the air?
It made a huge difference. It was in the air. It was ambient. You know what I mean? It was all around, and you couldn't see it, but you can feel it. Being on the Edmund Pettus Bridge, you know, that's still there, still with that name, named after the Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan. People cross that bridge every day, and the people who still live in that community coming out, supporting this project, supporting the retelling of their local history. It was something that, you know, there were marchers who survived the assault on the bridge in 1965 who had come out to be extras in our film. And so what that does for me as a filmmaker, what that does for David and their cast as actors, is just, it becomes embedded in the images that we're making. And I truly believe that the audience can see it and kind of feel it in some way as they watch Selma. So that's our hope, that we kind of align what happened then to this cultural moment, and that in between something happens that changes the conversation and gets people to take action.
And how do you go about creating the speeches, the dialogue? Because you couldn't use his speeches, but you had to create something powerful, a great orator in these great speeches. How do you go about writing that? Because I know I don't know if you're credited, but you rewrote quite a bit of it.
Yeah, I rewrote the speeches, and I just tried to go line by line, word for word, and really tried to put myself into the place of what was King trying to say, and unanchor myself from the exact words, because if we stuck with the exact words, the film wouldn't be made. That's why it hadn't been made all of these decades. So we thought it was more important to tell his story than tether ourselves from the words. Once we did that, then you bring in a master thespian as David Oyelowo, and it all comes together.
And you spoke before, or in interviews rather, about this being, you wanted this to be rooted in the contemporary, and you know, it's for better and worse that it's so potent watching it today, considering what has happened. Where can you speak to where are we now with what Dr. King was talking about in 2014, what's been happening in the U.S.?
Well, I think beautifully we are at a point now where people are rising. People have had enough. And I don't think that the problems that have instigated that have been dormant or not present. I just think that there is a culmination. There is also I think, a deep-seated unrest with what's going on. Inevitably, you know, with specific instances, I think you have a sort of a culmination coming through Trayvon Martin into Mike Brown, now Eric Garner. It's just, when you see that footage, it's just undeniable, I think. And so very much like with Selma, images brought people together as humanity, black and white, people of all faiths, people of all socioeconomic backgrounds, to say enough is enough. And my prayer, my hope is that it's not just protest, but it's also strategy that brings about real change.
And there are images in the film that look like things that are going on now. And lastly, real quick, back to sort of what we were talking about at the beginning. This took a while to make. There aren't a lot of female directors out there. There aren't a lot of female directors of color. Do you find it difficult to do what you want? Is Hollywood, is that industry, entertainment industry, segregated? Is there still discrimination in it?
Yes, absolutely. It's very segregated and there is discrimination. That's why artists of color have to find new ways to tell stories. That's why we have to work together to tell stories. That's why we have to look at independent means. That's why we have to be self-determined. This film is an example of all of that. Our producer, Oprah Winfrey, is the one who said this one will have her vision as the final stamp of the film. And so the film that you see is my final cut, and that's because a black woman made it so as my producer. That's why a black actor who's my lead got me the job. And I think there's something about that solidarity among artists of color. If we can do that more, then we can overcome some of the challenges of the industry.
There are 70 million people watching. These pictures are going around the world.
We must make a massive demonstration. White, black, and otherwise. Come to Selma.
I heard about the attack of innocent people. I couldn't just stand by.
Looks like an army out there.
This revolution goes on and on. This revolution goes on and on. My eyes have seen the glory, glory, glory. Hallelujah.
What happens when a man stands up, says enough is enough?